Nike, Adidas, Vans, a portion of the conglomerate known as Big Shoe. They're massive players in the shoe industry, one worth almost $400 billion, and they're all involved in a plot to ruin the health of your feet and body. Countless surgeries, bunion deformities, knee issues, back pain, and more can all be linked back to the misleading marketing that we've been fed from this juggernaut of an industry who sell us these, which aren't even shaped like this. The issues this industry causes hits close to home for me, and to explain this, we gotta go back. Farther, even farther. There you go. Like you, I was once a baby with 2 perfect wide feet. I started crawling, then within a month, I was walking. That's a lie. But it did happen at some point, and well, we all know what happens next. These were popular in high school, and everyone wore them because they looked like sneakers. The song Vans by The Pack was totally an ad. You know it probably made Vans billions and The Pack thousands because they spoke to us through our music. Then, our beloved J's. So clean, but there's no way you're gonna let yourself crease these. Just do it. The last major shoe I wore was the cleat. Being a soccer player, that's the real football. These were so narrow. But you know, Messi wore Adidas. It's part of the beautiful game. I love this sport and might have been able to go pro, but because of the design of these, I had to get this. Years of stuffing my feet into these narrow foot coffins left me unable to wiggle my toes, which I didn't even realize was a problem. The surgery got rid of some of my foot pain, but left me unable to run, so I got cut in college. And the weakness of my feet, caused by years of absent-minded abuse in shoes, left me with knee and back pain, the source of which I could never figure out. The funny thing is, I always attributed my pain to those specific areas. But when I started taking the strength and health of my feet seriously, the pain I had in other parts of my body slowly started to subside. It took a while, but slowly my feet became stronger, and I was slowly able to build the capacity to run and sprint again without pain. So by the end of this video, you're gonna have an understanding of the habits, exercises, and concepts you can use to strengthen your feet and unlock your physical potential. The way you move through life will change because your main tools of movement, your feet, will begin to function the way they were designed to. This will help you get stronger, faster, and improve your overall athleticism. Big Shoe stole this function from you, and it's time to get it back. If you're able to, kick your shoes and socks off and try this out. Take your hand and glove your foot. It's gonna feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you'll adapt over time. I do this each day to give my feet some glove. Big Shoe's propaganda stole the space we should have between our toes, and the hand-foot glove is one of the ways that we'll be able to get that toe space back. By the way, while you're doing it, squeeze your fingers with your toes. This will help you get back the lost skill of articulating these teensy-weensy digits. If you do this for your significant other, you're bound to get some brownie points. So how's this feel? Good or painful? Comment down below and let me know. What does Chinese foot binding, high heels, and Jordans all have in common? They all prioritize fashion and aesthetics over health and function. They're stiff and rigid, which steals the foot's ability to actually be a foot. Slowly, without noticing, you're robbed of your ability to move your toes and intrinsic foot muscles. Your feet are being stuffed into shoes that aren't even shaped like real feet, and over the years, your neurological connection to them begins to weaken. There have been a lot of studies linking ill-fitting modern footwear to many of the foot problems our population deals with today. So this is where we can work smarter and not much harder. Imagine taking off your shoes and walking in some grass. The grass is a bit dewy, and your awareness of the bottom of your feet and toes are heightened. Naturally, you start to move those intrinsic foot muscles a little bit more, improving your connection to your feet. We all know this feeling distinctly, and this is why the texture beneath your feet is an extremely powerful tool that can help wake them up. So these tools are going to help you improve that connection no matter where you are or what you're doing. First, toe socks. Amazon has a bunch of different brands. I get it, you think they look funny. But when wearing these, the fabric between your toes will actually improve your awareness of them over time. This adds up, as each day the foot-to-brain connection will get a little bit stronger. And fair warning, putting on toe socks for the first time is damn frustrating.
I think toe spreaders in the evening can be a really useful tool to restore what your feet should be doing, especially if you've been cramming your feet into shoes. When I was 20, I went to Nepal, and there were these porters who were carrying 80 kilos on their back, and they were barefoot. And their feet looked like triangles. So the heel was back, but their feet were so wide and none of their toes touched. And every time they took a step, the toes touched the ground. So they were carrying these huge loads barefoot in the mountains, and they had these feet. And I remember being like, whoa, That's weird. So toe spreader is a great way to recover your feet, especially if you're having to use a shoe that does what? That compromises your foot functions.
Toe spreaders. You've probably seen them, and there's a ton that you can buy. Like I showed you before, your hands free, but you can't glove your feet all day long. If you go to Amazon, you can find them for as cheap as $5 to $10. This is the style I dig, since I'm able to stick some coins in them and get extra space in the big toe. Seriously, these can make a really big difference over time, so make sure that you wear them. When relaxing or walking, keep them on, but don't overuse them. If your feet start feeling sore, take them off and give your feet a break. It's a long process, and when I say long, I'm talking years. But let's be real. Your feet have probably been stuck in normal, modern shoes for decades. So it's gonna take some time to make your feet function the way they should. Now we can take the power of texture even further. Textured mats are an amazing way to bring stimulation and blood flow back to the bottoms of your feet. For different textures, you can find yourself a rock or a turf mat online, and Amazon has a ton of them. But this one right here is my absolute favorite. It's the Stoic mat from Wild Gym. When podcasting or working from my computer, I'll stand on this mat, which helps bring more awareness to my feet and toes. Now let's try something else. Whether you're sitting or standing, try out the short foot exercise. Some people call this doming, rooting your foot, or the arch builder. There's a few cues for this. You can imagine you're trying to spread the floor apart with your feet, or imagine you're bringing your big toe towards your heel, making sure your forefoot doesn't leave the ground. You'll notice that you create a natural arch, and you'll feel the muscles of your arch begin to fire. If it feels weird or even cramps up right now, that's okay. It'll get easier each day as you practice it. In the gym, you can even practice doing this with squats, deadlifts, and any movement that keeps you on your feet. This will help activate the arch that you've been told you don't have. I'm going to show you more movements later in this video, and as you work on them, you're probably going to feel your feet cramp up a bit. This is not a problem. This happened to me with all of these movements when I started. You're moving your feet into ranges of motion that they haven't been able to touch in years. And as you do it more, cramping will happen less as your brain to foot connection improves. Naturally, you got to start paying attention to what you're putting on your feet. And if you're a shoe head, this one's probably going to hurt. But hey, if your foot's comfortably able to squeeze into a shoe like this without changing its form, good for you. For most of us, this isn't the case. They're stiff, which limits your foot's freedom of movement, and they're not flat, which changes the way we stand and walk, once again conforming to the shoe.
Is that so like that's where the pressure plate. So you can see obviously the green, and that shows how much pressure I have with contact with the floor.
When you're just standing.
Just standing, yeah. Because we're so used to having shoes that the toes go up. You notice you can't see my toes.
Oh, yeah.
I stand with toes up because all the shoes we have toes up, which we then get used to standing back rather than, so you technically should be able to see all your toes on that pressure plate.
These shoes slow down your blood flow to the nerves in the foot so that the shoe can be worn comfortably. Modern day foot binding, folks, and we've been conditioned by big shoes propaganda to see this as stylish, normal, and something that deserves our dollars. They say it's totally normal to need insoles for your flat feet. They'll help support your arch. And I don't want to demonize orthotics. They can definitely be helpful for some people. But for most of us, they're just a band-aid to weak and dysfunctional feet. Being prescribed them is like being placed on a conveyor belt meant to keep you in them for the rest of your life.
Maybe 0.001% of people that actually need a full-time orthotic. That would be for some rare genetic condition or an injury they've sustained that's created the need for it. This whole idea that a flat foot's an issue is pretty much made up, I think.
Orthotics, within 12 weeks of wearing them, you'll see atrophy within the muscle intrinsics of the feet.
Instead of telling me that I had flat feet and sticking me in orthotics, I wish my podiatrist would have told me to do foot exercises when I was a teenager. I wish he would have understood that some of the greatest athletes have had flat feet, like Michael Jordan, Usain Bolt, and Lionel Messi. He probably didn't even realize that people from different cultures have different foot shapes. African cultures tend to have flatter feet than their counterparts in other areas of the globe. Having a flat foot only tells you how the foot looks, not how it functions. And through marketing from Big Shoe, we're led to believe that we need to be using footwear that's narrow, with arch support, and insoles that will inevitably make our feet weaker. This is all seen as normal. Guys, this isn't normal, and this is why we need to get used to wearing foot-shaped shoes. When you have a shoe that's flexible, you're able to get extension and movement in your feet and toes, movement that they've been deprived of because of Big Shoe's propaganda. And unlike the popular shoes they market, which can permanently disfigure your feet, these shoes are wide, allowing room for your foot to function the way it was designed to. Because they're zero drop or flat, you'll slowly begin to stand and walk differently. Most shoes have an artificial toe lift and arch support, which gets you accustomed to walking hard, slamming your heel into the ground with each step because the shoe cushions the impact.
So when you have a shoe on now that's a barefoot shoe, you don't have all that cushion right there. You don't have the marshmallow heel. You got to learn how to walk again a little bit differently. So it's going to take some time to do that. You got to learn how to have that pressure that's more fluid as you're walking. Now, if we're talking about transitioning to walking, that takes a little bit of time. That transition to running with Vivos would take even longer. But again, you got to learn how to crawl, walk, run.
I've been wearing barefoot shoes for about 4.5 years, and I am still surprised at how much better my feet and body move now versus when I first began. But as you begin wearing barefoot shoes, you're going to find that you don't like the way they feel, especially if you've been wearing shoes from these companies. There's minimal cushion between yourself and the ground. The adaptation's going to take time, so you might need to microdose barefoot shoes initially. In the video here, I talked about the 5 physical capacities I've implemented into my life so that my body ages well, 2 of which are jump roping and sprinting. Both habits are great for your longevity, but also the strength of your feet. To do this successfully, you need to microdose these habits into your day-to-day, so you don't injure yourself as you progress the skills. The same concept holds true for your new barefoot lifestyle. Now, if you've been digging this content, I want you to consider subscribing to the channel. My goal is to put out content that's going to help you become a stronger human, and this content will be able to do just that. There's also the Untapped Discord server that has over 800 martial artists and athletes. And if you want to ask me any questions there, diet advice, recovery advice, all that good stuff, join over there. Years ago when I was starting out, I was super pumped to make my feet stronger, and I wore nothing but the most intense barefoot shoes. I paid for that with a bunch of small overuse injuries and a few stress fractures. My feet couldn't handle all this new stress. I was doing too much too soon. That's why I began to look at my shoes like arrows in a quiver. On the days my feet were feeling a bit beat up, I'd wear some barefoot style shoes with a bit more cushion. And when the feet felt recovered, I'd pull out my more minimal barefoot shoes and sandals to make my feet work more, improving their strength. To make progress in training, you need some rest days so that you can make long-term progress. The same goes for your feet. The form of your foot is changing, so you gotta be kind to your feet. If you wake up with sore feet after a day of walking and foot exercises, let them recover. You might be wondering, how about flip-flops? They don't really squeeze your foot, they're flat, and they're flexible. And yo, it's embarrassing how many rainbow flip-flops I used to own, which is why when I found out how these were ruining my feet, I was devastated.
In order to keep the flip-flop on, you have to just clench your big toe. And that changes how you walk, because as soon as that toe can't flex, you actually can't make your foot do what your foot is designed to do. So if you clench that big toe, you've created an artificially rigid foot. So now if your toe is super stiff, you end up solving that problem by walking through your foot, not around your foot, rather than sort of using your ankle and using your toes the way they should be.
Instead of a flip-flop that negatively impacts the way you walk, opt in for a sandal. There are brands like Earth Runners and Luna, but my favorite are from a company called Shama. We actually partnered with them to create the Power Sandal. It's got a leather footbed, a vibrant sole that'll last hundreds of miles, and a lacing system that'll make sure that the way you walk isn't compromised. Stylistically, the sandal looks a lot different from a flip-flop. I've even had guys comment,
"Yo, are those women's sandals?"
And honestly guys, I think the ladies might have gotten it right. I tend not to care what people think because I know my feet are functioning the way they should. The goal is helping my feet gain back the function that modern shoes destroyed. This is a secret Big Shoe keeps on the down low. When they give top athletes their cleats, they make them custom versions that'll fit their feet comfortably. The rest of us get the master mold, and no, that's not an X-Men 97 reference. The master mold the consumer gets is a general mold of a shoe that everyone wears. We all have slightly different shaped feet, some wider, some a bit more narrow, and we all put on the same shoe with the only difference being the length. And since we've been brainwashed to think that this shape looks good, Big Shoe continues to profit from our dysfunction. It's funny that Nike came out with a marketing ploy that makes kids shoes that are extremely wide, but they still make adult shoes that are extremely narrow. They've known about this problem and have profited for decades. But since people are starting to catch on, they want to come in and save the day. But there are other innovators in the space of athletic footwear. My buddy Ben Patrick created the first wide toe box flat basketball shoe, and the company's Code Footwear and Natura Athletics makes custom cleats for all field athletes based on your foot. I'll be grabbing a pair of those soon because these are crushing the hell out of my feet. If you want to get your hands on the barefoot shoes and sandals I dig, there's discount links in the description. Vivo Barefoot has amazing shoes for the gym, casual barefoot shoes, hiking shoes, and even boots. So definitely check them out. There's a lot to choose from. Now that footwear's out of the way, let's dive into even more ways to transform your feet. I'm going to lay out a 3-capacity framework that I believe will give you the freedom to strengthen your feet with an infinite amount of techniques. Let's start with range of motion and dexterity. Think about what a healthy feet should be able to do. You should be able to wiggle and spread your toes. For example, can you lift your big toe and keep the others flat? If not, practice it. And in this physical capacities video, I talked about the benefits of sitting on the floor and the long-term benefits that the capacity holds. You can take advantage of the floor and use it to push your feet and toes into different ranges of motion. How about this? Can you get up onto your toes? How about walking on your toes? And maybe the sides of your feet. Doing walks in different ways can actually help strengthen your feet and ankles as you pressurize your foot. The reason I'm currently so focused on the toes is because they need to be strong. Research from Karen Mickle shows that toe weakness is a massive predictor of falls as you get older. I actually purchased some cheap marbles from Amazon, and I use this game to work on foot dexterity. You see this tendon right here? When doing the next few movements I'm about to show you, I want you to pay attention to it on your foot. Try to zone in on making it fire when performing them. The towel curl can improve your foot's ability to flex and extend the toes, along with improving the strength of this tendon. Then there's the heel elevated towel curl. I saw this from Coach Chong Xie, and it's a progression from the flat towel curls. You can work on these movements anywhere, but when starting out, pay attention to the soreness of your feet. Your feet are going to need time to recover, so maybe think about doing some of this stuff 4 to 5 days a week initially, and then increasing your frequency from there. But if your feet feel good, feel free to do this work whenever you're able, but I can't stress this enough. Don't overdo it. Now we want to think of loading the tissues of our feet with weight and plyometrics. This is where the short foot we talked about comes back into play. You want to get used to creating the structure when you do movements in or outside the gym. When doing movements like bodyweight squats, goblet squats, kettlebell swings, deadlifts, split squats, and more, you'll also be working on engaging the foot, which will improve its stability and strength. Start with no weight or very, very light. Most of us have always been lifting from the ankle up and haven't paid attention to the action of our feet. But after a few weeks or months, you'll notice how much more stable you feel when exercising because your connection to the earth is strengthened. It doesn't stop there though. You can also load the forefoot and strengthen the toes and ankles. All types of calf raises with full range of motion. But you can easily regress this by doing it on flat ground if the negative is unstable. And if we work the back side of the foot, the calves, we should also work the front side. Most people who deal with shin splints have weak tibs, or the tibialis. So if you point the toes upwards like this, you'll be strengthening this muscle group. The closer you are to the wall, the easier it is. Over time, you can load this with weight, but we're not going to get too deep into that right now. Typical shoes prevent the forefoot and toes from getting to these deep extended ranges easily, if at all. See why the shoes you wear make such a big difference now? Before we unlock your plyometric ability, I've made a foot strengthening program that uses this 3-capacity framework, all movements that you do. Links to everything are in the description below. Your plyometric ability isn't just your ability to jump, but it's also your ability to be able to land and handle the impact of the ground. Our feet are shock absorbers, and when they do their job well, the force of ground impact is dispersed evenly throughout our body. When they're weak, that force will hit different areas and causes pain since our shock absorbers aren't doing their job. That's why microdosing the practice of the jump rope and slowly improving at it over time can be so helpful. Of course, this can be regressed, and if normal jumping hurts, small hops while holding onto a surface will relieve some pressure and help you build the skill over time. Remember, the starting point for each of us is different, and if this is where your starting point is right now, don't give up. We can all improve. And of course, this can be progressed over time. You can start doing single leg jumps, higher hops, and even depth drops. We must find balance. People tend to get worse at this as they get older, but if you make it a habit, you'll be one of those rare older individuals that just has it. We can start by going on one leg and actually balancing, creating the short foot to grab the ground and keep us in place. Hold on to something if you need it, and use less assistance over time. See how long you can stay balanced. If this feels easy, close your eyes and see how much challenge this adds. I love this stuff because you can practice it whenever, wherever. You can also use different tools to work on your balance. This is a PVC sewer pipe I bought from Home Depot for $10. I like to work on balance on it along with some walking, but there's definitely much easier places to start. You can cut it in half so you can turn it into something like this, the Soulmate from the Foot Collective. You can also just buy it from them. It's a pretty great tool. You can work on balance by yourself, but you can also play different balance games with friends. Skills with these balance tools can easily be progressed over time. This next one's advanced, and when practicing it, you want to get to a point where you feel the foot to glute connection on the balancing leg. The leg swing is one of my favorite practices for dynamic movement stability. I learned this from Robert Schlepp's book, Fascial Fitness, along with Coach Chong Xie. This movement can easily be regressed by holding on to something for assistance. You'll grab a marble with one foot so it maintains tension, and you'll see the anterior tibial tendon that we spoke about earlier. Then stand on one leg and swing the opposite foot. Make sure the pelvis stays neutral. You'll notice your balancing leg has to really work to keep you rooted. And now, things get more exciting as you progress and mix elements from each framework. Forefoot balance on the ground or the slant board. I learned this from Brian McGinty, and the practice has become an almost daily habit. I love this as it challenges the foot and ankle as you put your foot into different angles on the slant board. This played a big role in helping me get rid of some ankle pain that I was experiencing. And how about this? Putting a band around the ankle and doing a single leg loaded RDL. The focus here would be creating short foot, finding tension in the glute, and performing the movement. And here's another one, a weighted plyometric, like jumping rope with a weighted vest. This isn't something you'll do immediately, but as I've shown you, there's tons of regressions and infinite amount of progressions you can work on. Let's complete this framework. A staggered stance squat on the balls of the feet incorporates loading capacity while improving the range of motion in the toes. You'll want to load this slowly initially, and my friend Every Goddamn Dre has progressed this to an extremely advanced level. Lastly, an ATG split squat on the balls of the feet. This works loading capacity, foot dexterity, along with the balance element as you lunge forward, getting deep into the tissues of the front foot. Rushing this stuff can lead to injury, which is why everything should be done to your pain-free ability. This industry has robbed us of our health without us being aware of it, and it's time to wake up. These are the top 5 capacities that have helped my body continue to feel younger as I get older, and I think it'll help you become a stronger human. Click it. You'll enjoy it.